The first question is, how did you become a non-feminist woman?
I think there was no defining moment, actually. I think it was sort of a gradual moving away from the movement. I think there were sort of two main reasons behind that, and one of them was that it just seemed like any time I wanted to have a discussion with anyone or just voice a different opinion, people were not really nice. So when people aren't nice to me, it makes it really awkward and uncomfortable. And so that was the first thing. And the second thing I think was that because this is such a hot button issue, or has been for like the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years, there's been a lot of pushback, of course, and I sort of read everything, and I noticed that when I was reading things that were sort of counter to what the feminist narrative was, it was making a bit more sense to me on the opposite side. So just something like the wage gap, for example, there was a lot more evidence to say that that was really kind of made up,
Right.
than it being true. So I just think if I don't believe a lot of what you're saying, I'm not really interested in your movement. So
okay. And do you believe that in the West we are living in a patriarchy? Do you believe that Western culture is a patriarchy? Do men have more power than women? Do they have all the power? How do you see the
I
power
don't
structure?
think we're living in a patriarchy at all anymore. We might have been at one time, but I think it's probably leaning more towards a matriarchy now.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily see being a patriarchy, unless it's not, something very extreme where we're actually, controlling what people think and wear and say and all that, then I don't see patriarchy as being a bad thing in that regards.
Yeah. Okay. What are your thoughts on traditional gender roles?
Well, I'm actually sort of living a traditional gender role, actually. I'm a stay-at-home mum, and I like being a stay-at-home mum. I would like to not have to work if I can avoid it.
Yeah.
But I think it's fine. I think it's a very valid choice. Having said that, I'm not opposed to somebody who wants to go out and work. But I will also just add that I think a lot of the information I've seen, especially recently, has sort of spoken to the fact that if you have children, for example, and you do also have a job, they tend to not fare as well if they're in daycare a lot of the time or from an early age. And that's a bit concerning to me. That wasn't my reality. As I said, I'm a stay-at-home mum, so I didn't have to
I'm a
worry
stay-at-home
about
mum
that
as well. And I think it is I recently in the group there's been a lot of talk about stay-at-home moms, not stay-at-home moms, but about the traditional gender roles and people who don't like it and think, because there are a lot of anti-feminists who don't like the traditional gender roles. And the majority of anti-feminists are men, and I think a lot of them really upset with the whole concept of the traditional gender roles and stuff. And I understand that, and that's fair, and so on. But the thing is that I think from the perspective of, there are many women who are also against feminism because feminism somehow attacks these roles. And they say that they want choice, and it should be about choice. And I think everybody would believe that it should be about choice. If you want to do this, you can do it this way. If you want to do it, you can do it that way. Just don't attack each other, because because this turns a lot of women away from what feminism, because they say it's about choice, but it's not really, when traditional gender roles are being attacked, and it's being said that this is a toxic dynamic, or that it leads to poverty, and stuff like this. And then they would say, okay, but maybe we are attacking them when we point out that it's valid for someone to be in the home because of the children and stuff. But I don't see this as fully an attack, in the sense that usually traditional people, at least, are saying that as a response to say, okay, you're asking me to defend why I want to stay home. These are the reasons. I believe that this is better for my child's mental health or growth or whatever, and For me, for example, I think a lot of it also comes from the fact that many traditional people probably grew up themselves in traditional households. And so I was given that. My mother was there, and it was important for me to have somebody there. This was something that was valid and important to me. So I chose a life where I could stay at home to be there for my children because this was important to me. And I think we are saying this in response to them. Hey, these are the reasons why we think this is healthy. We think this is valid, but it comes from being attacked. Because in the attempt that they make to destroy patriarchy, they have attacked us,
Yes, okay. Well, they've sort of torn down every kind of option other than being a modern woman. So you were sort of mentioning about choice before. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of ways, there really isn't a choice anymore. You have to work. And if you don't work, you're viewed as lesser and not, successful. You've wasted your life or not lived up to your full potential and things like that. So there's really no choice. And I mean, the economy being what it is too, that does make it a lot harder. But there's no choice anymore. And it didn't used to be like that. I mean, as recently as the 80s and 90s, it seemed like there was more choice. Like you could be
and also socially.
Woman.
You can talk about the economy. That's absolutely true. Economically, we don't have a choice, and I understand that. So it's a bit of a class discussion. I that's fair. But also in terms of socially, if you keep knocking something down and you keep saying that this is toxic, this is bad, women can't survive, men are bad, and they will hurt you. Defend put yourself on this defensive, whatever. What if? I mean, to be honest, it's fine to warn people. But the point is, if you keep knocking something down, then socially we will reach a point where it's unsustainable. Also,
I agree.
Yeah, you have to think about the gender wars, the way in which feminists treat men. This reflects upon women. I mean, it is assumed that that feminists are speaking for women. This is what they say. They say they're women's rights. They're speaking for women. And then they go out there and talk badly about men, say they are rapists, make terrible, comics and memes saying negative things. What are men to think that women are thinking? And why would a man want to provide or also for this?
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, they also tend to downplay any issues that men have. So they've put men in an elevated position in society, and because they've got all the privilege, therefore they've got no issues, they've got no problems.
Right.
And that really is causing a lot of other issues. So, I mean, and this male is suicide, for example.
Male suicide, yeah. But this is also a tactic that they seem to use over and over again, where they just say, this group, they've done it to men. They say as a group, they have privilege, and therefore we don't have to have respect for them because they're lucky anyway, So we think about the minority group or whatever. And in the case of men and women, I find it fully unfair because I don't think that men even have the privilege that they are speaking about. So that's even a totally different discussion. But even when it comes to if people do have privilege or if groups have privilege, it is, it's also terrible because why can't we just be kind to everyone without making assumptions?
I'm totally in agreement with you on that. Absolutely.
Yeah, why can't we just be nice to everyone without making assumptions about their privilege and about their group? I don't understand how it's necessary to try to drag down.
Well, I think if you don't have a tactic that is so aggressive in that way that you are attacking people and knocking them down, then you don't get a sense of victory. So it's this tactic of divide and conquer, and that's an aggressive tactic. But if you're sort of softly, oh, please, listen to us, they feel like they're not going to be listened to. And now, at this point in time, why would we listen to you,
Yeah. So, but it seems like a lot of people do listen to feminists and do fall for this sort of thing.
That's true.
Yeah, I think over 50% of women in the West are identifying as feminists these days. So
that's a lot.
Yeah, it wasn't always that bad, but I mean, so Google says. I don't know what's true or not, and it could be. I don't know how they did the survey, but yeah, a lot of women do identify as feminists. Although, to be fair, I guess, yeah, I don't know what these women think, or it's hard to say. Just because someone identifies as a feminist, I don't know what their thoughts are on, So
Well, I think with particularly in terms of the younger generation, you've got a lot of celebrity endorsement of feminism. So take Taylor Swift,
right,
who's very outspoken on women's issues
right,
and things. So when you hear somebody that you might admire or like their work, and you hear them talking about these issues, it's hard to ignore it if you're an impressionable person, I suppose. And so there's a lot of celebrity endorsement. You've also got people like Emma Watson, who gave that UN speech whenever that was, and people sort of elevating issues in a way that takes it out of context. So you're only hearing one side of the story, and you're hearing it from a very influential person, and it's hard in a lot of ways to not be influenced by that.
Yeah. Okay. So the next question: what are your thoughts on men's rights activists?
I suppose it means. Well, it depends on whether you mean like the red pill group or just
I mean,
kind
in
of your
general,
average
the
guy.
manosphere, anything in this region. I mean, yeah, I agree. It's totally different. There are men's rights activists who actually do legal work and who are quite calm and normal, and you'll never hear about them. And then there are people who podcast
That's
and
true.
just crap on women all day. So there's
that's right.
Yeah. So, but what do you think about them in general?
Well, I don't have a problem with them, to be honest with you. I've never had an issue. No one's attacked me personally. I think everyone's entitled to their opinion. I think in the red pill community, there's a lot more extremism in, the opinions of men's rights and all of that. But I think that's partly because of the algorithms. It's bumping up the more and more extreme views over the more measured views. But there are plenty of men out there that have reasonable views and evidence to back up what they're saying. And I think that's perfectly valid.
Yeah. It's something like anti-feminist women as well. In general, anti-feminists are portrayed as crazy because maybe there are some crazy anti-feminists and there are extremes and stuff. But the actual viewpoint doesn't mean that you're an extremist or that you're crazy or that you hate women or anything like this. It's just,
Yes, well, I mean, the pick me girl
this is one of the
questions that's been thrown around is one of the worst ones that I've
this
heard.
is the question. How do you feel about being called a pick me girl?
Oh, I hate being called a pick me girl. It does kind of upset me, and then I don't want to feel like I'm being I feel degraded, actually, is a better way of putting it, when someone calls me a pick-me girl. I'm not trying to get attention from anyone specifically. I'm living my life, but, anytime you want to give an opinion, well, not any time, but generally when you give an opinion that a very committed feminist doesn't like, that's one of the first things they go to call you as a pick-me girl.
Yeah.
It's a bit demoralizing.
Yeah, I've been called that a lot. And it's interesting. I mean, also, well, first of all, I'm married, so I definitely don't want to be picked by a man in terms of the individual thing, right? I'm fine with that. But also, I mean, it also speaks to so what you're trying to say is that we should not try to get along with people in society, with men. We should not consider their feelings. Because if we consider them, apparently we want to be picked by them. This is something so terrible. The thing is, we could be considerate of men. They're half the population. What could possibly be wrong with being considerate of half of the population? Of how
they especially want men to be considerate of their feelings and their experiences and what they go through, but they don't want to then reciprocate that.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, the whole idea should just be everybody be considerate of everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So, what do you think about intersectionality?
it hasn't affected my life personally, but I do find the concept a bit weird. I don't think we should be valuing people, in terms of human beings, or like if you're looking at someone being hired for a job, or who should get resources in terms of support, or what issues are we going to work towards as a society to fight. I don't think we should be putting
race and
silly things like making it a hierarchy in that sense. I mean, there are things that just statistics alone might say that need more attention, but if you're going to say hire somebody for a job just because they're a woman and we need to fill a quota to have more women, I don't think that's a good thing. You should be hiring people based on their merits, their credentials, their ability to bring good things to the job.
Yeah. Intersectionality is a tricky one, yeah. I mean,
it is.
In terms of a concept, I get it. So I had a problem with that with feminism, but in terms of how they apply it, I do have issues, yeah. Because I don't like that they try to use it to say, white male privilege, whatever, this sort of, I don't know how to put it, but how they go around on the internet saying, you have privilege, you don't have privilege, you this. And it's like, this is just, you are making a judgment about an individual without even remotely attempting to know anything about that individual.
That's right.
And like, I mean, and it's like, is it so hard to just get to know the person? A little bit before.
Well, that's right.
Before trying to attack them or trying to make a judgment. How where in history has that ever gone right?
I can't think of one example.
Yeah, it's yeah. It is a very complex thing, intersectionality, but yeah, there are aspects of it that are problematic, and definitely it shouldn't be boiled down and used to just attack people and be used in this sort of mean way to say you have privilege, and then, to say to the people who don't have privilege, you don't have privilege, well, you don't know anything about how that person has lived and what privileges they actually have, because privilege doesn't just come in the form of race or gender or sexuality. These are things, yes, but it also comes in everyday interactions, your specific situation, your family interactions, so many things, money, there are like an infinite amount of factors that affect how privilege.
That's right, and they're adding more and more every day, it seems like.
Yeah, but the amount of factors are so huge that it is very difficult for you to look at someone and weigh which, I mean, although to be honest, of course, certain groups face more issues than others here or there, and you can do that. But how you use this is very, you have to be careful. And the first step to be careful is don't do it to individuals in real life, okay? Because it just invalidates everything. It means you're too lazy to get to know a person. You're just lazy.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, how do you feel about okay, have you heard of hypergamy?
I have, yes.
Yeah. Do you think that women choose marry up, or what do you think about this?
That hasn't been my experience. I mean, the people in my community around me, they're not really looking for the richest guy in the room or even the best looking in a lot of cases. They're marrying people that I've seen who they just really love and are good people and treat them well and good family role models and things like that. I think hypergamy exists. We see it on the internet, I suppose, because, again, algorithms. But I do think that that's a very specific group of individuals who do that. And generally, from what I've seen, it's only a small age group that's doing it as well. So I mean, sure, if everyone's a consenting party, and then fine, but I don't think it's as big a thing as people want to make out that it is.
Okay. Yeah, I tend to think it exists, yeah, okay, but I think what people have to keep in mind is two things. Human diversity exists as well. So even if you're going to have hypergamy, maybe a few women will be super hypergamous, and on the other end, you will have women who have no traces of hypergamy. So human diversity is going to exist. That's one part of it. And the other part of it, I think, is while hypergamy may exist, and I would then tend to think it is something from nature or instincts or whatever, this is not the whole of a woman. Okay, this is a part of a person, just as there are parts of all of us that are narcissistic. There are parts of all of us that are super selfish. There are parts of us that are whatever. We have bad parts, but we also have good parts. We also have empathy. We also have, so like the whole of a human is way more important than what this part or this part or this part. And people are complex. They've also lived lives. They also have experiences. And yeah, what makes up a person is a million things. And if hypergamy is one part of it, then that's one part of it in their nature. You don't know that individual woman if she's going to be super hyper, it's just, so I do think it's something that exists probably from nature and so on as an instinct in women, and there will be diversity, so not all women, but I do think...
Well, I think you're right there. I think a lot of women, most women, do look for somebody who's going to be a provider and a protector. But there are, as you say, levels to hypergamy in the sense where some people are looking for, like, the rich man in finance, blue eyes.
And it also depends on their upbringing and stuff. I mean, if somebody grew up in poverty for their entire life and this was, like, something super important, then this might bring out the hypergamy, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So this would, but if somebody grew up relatively stable, money was never a problem, like I don't think that they're going to prioritize this because it's never been a problem for them. They're not going to, okay. So the next question is, what do you think of gynocentrism? Do you think that the world is sort of centered on women? Do you think that women get more sympathy in society? And also, like, who do you think has it easier in society? Who does society treat better, women or men, or how do you see that?
I do believe that that society treats women better. All of the issues that we hear in the media, things like domestic violence, women's health care, mental health, divorce, and even cheating spouses or whatever, all of the sympathy, well, at least the majority of it, is onto women. We always hear women's stories, and if there is a story about a man, it's usually shoved to the side. It's definitely a women's world at this point.
Okay. Yeah, well, I agree that women tend to have it easier. Also, they say, like, men face more time in jail for the same crime. And I think this is a big one that shows... I've heard
that too.
Yeah, this shows that women are given more sympathy.
Well, a good example of that is infanticide. So, a woman might murder her baby and she'll get a certain jail time, but and generally when a woman does murder her baby, a lot of people are like, oh, she must have been so desperate, the poor thing. Right. And if a man murders his baby or child, whatever, then everyone's like, what a monster. Yeah. Throw away the key, essentially.
Yeah, there are many double standards like this. And
absolutely.
Yeah, women somehow get more sympathy. We also saw, I don't know if you saw the film Baby Reindeer.
I did, yep.
Yeah, I mean, I do have complete sympathy for Fiona. It's not Fiona, for Martha. I have sympathy for the character and stuff, so I understand because she's crazy. But, you always also wondered, do we have more sympathy for her because she's a woman?
Or, I absolutely think so. If the roles in that situation were totally reversed, it would be a much scarier film, and it would be portrayed in a much scarier way. But
I suppose that's because we see men. I suppose that's because we see men as strong and women as weak or something. Yeah. So so there is this aspect of we have more sympathy for women. Yeah, and this is probably quite well embedded in us to see men as strong and women as weak, and yeah.
Well, that's a good point, because with Martha, you mentioned she is crazy, which she clearly is. Normal people don't do that, but we would view her as crazy, whereas with a man, I think we would view as violent and scary. Even Martha, though she's nuts, I'm not sure she's capable of murder.
Right. In the film, she attacked the girlfriend, so she did do some things that were violent.
True,
of course, she also
true.
sexually assaulted him, but we don't. For us, it's just she's crazy, and I really feel bad for her, and I hope she gets a social worker soon to actually help her. And that's just the normal reaction. But if a guy does it, it would be like, that's scary.
Yes. It would be a horror movie as opposed to just a very unsettling show.
Yeah. So humans have this bias.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So the next question: do you have like a YouTube channel or anything you want to share with us?
I do have a YouTube channel. Unfortunately, you can't really search for it because I'm not big enough, but I can send you the link at some point. So if anyone wants to have a look at it,
okay, I can put the link in the video, and I can put it in the description. I'll put the link.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. The next question is, okay. Has anyone in your life ever been affected by feminist culture? Do you know anyone, or do you have any story, something that you feel you or someone has been affected by our culture in any way?
Not at this stage, because when I was growing up, it just wasn't a thing. You know, I'm 35, so when I was in high school and all that, I went to an all-girls school for part of high school, and we didn't go around sort of feeling oppressed by anyone. There was a boys' high school right next to us, and we never felt like they had it better, like they had nicer classrooms.
It was just different.
Like that.
It was just their boys and their girls. Right. Yeah, and I think
I could walk around the street at night. That was probably a silly thing to do, but I could still do it. And I would walk around the street at night, and I was not scared of anything ever happening to me. Mm-hmm. But now people are making me paranoid, thinking like, should I be scared? And I don't think that's true. The statistics really show that if men are out at night, maybe they don't feel as frightened, but they're actually more likely to be attacked than a woman. Mm-hmm. So I don't necessarily have a story in terms of someone being negatively impacted by feminism, but I do think that if trends continue, it's likely my daughters might have a bit of a hard time.
I feel so too. I feel like the children, we're handing them a culture that is odd.
Yes.
And I mean, like,
that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. And diversity is wonderful. It's great that the culture is so diverse and that they can be whoever they want to be. That's wonderful. But if the relationship between men and women as a whole in society is completely broken to the point where men dislike women from the get-go and women dislike men from the get-go, I think that that's a really poor cultural standard to hand to your children. And I can say that as someone who comes originally from the Caribbean. And I grew up, in the Caribbean, we have a history of slavery and so on that happened. And this happened a long time ago, of course, but we also have a history of discrimination and stuff. So what happened with the Black community was a lot of things, but oppression sort of kept the Black community without the Black men couldn't make money. They couldn't own land. They were somehow always oppressed in a sense, the men or whatever. And possibly because of different things, hypergamy, there was no one else for the woman. But the point is, different things broke the relationship between men and women. And that's something that lasts till today, right? I don't know if it comes directly from slavery or if it comes from what happened post-slavery or where it comes from. I can't say that. But I know that, for example, if you look back to the past, family structure wasn't allowed. They were not allowed to be a part of the church. They were not allowed to do many things. They weren't even allowed to get married, to be honest, for most of the history. They weren't allowed to get married. So what you have is common law marriage as something that is more normalized or so on. But the point is that the society has a rift between men and women. And this creates a situation where normal monogamy is not a choice that one can make. And I don't think that the other Western societies, like in Americans, y'all haven't experienced this, and most likely y'all will not. But the point is, there is a chance, even if it's a small chance, there's a chance that by breaking the relationship between men and women to in an extreme way, that you end up with a society of boys who don't like women and women who don't like men. And this is something quite negative. I don't know if I'll put all this in the. I'll see if I'll upload all of this. But and it's also something that often crossed my mind when I talk about feminism, because a lot of the things that I see feminists complain about are things that are completely and totally normalized within Black culture. And I wonder if some of it is coming from there, in that when they talk about catcalling and stuff, and men who tell them to smile, this is something that I believe comes from Black culture. Really, it comes from Black culture. It's something from Black culture that they're complaining about, and they maybe don't understand it. It's a misunderstanding. It's a cultural misunderstanding. And I think when the cultures mesh, and then you import certain parts of this and that culture, sometimes you import parts that are dangerous, and you have to be careful. It's because it doesn't always end well. But I don't think that'll happen to Western society. It'll be okay. But still,
I think
it's important for women. But still, it's important for women to speak out, because women need to send the message to both men and women and other women that not all women are okay with degrading men. Not all women are okay with being inconsiderate to men. And not all women are terrible. Because if women just sit and stay silent and don't say anything, then it seems that all women are okay with the way feminists talk about men. All women are okay with saying that men were oppressors historically. And this can't be. It can't be that all the women are okay with rewriting of history and saying that these people oppressed us, and not acknowledging that they also protected, that they also gave their lives, that they also, you understand? This has to be said. Yeah, it has to be said. Women have to stand up and say this, so that at least for the history books,
I agree. It can be a bit hard when you've got people attacking you from every corner, but it does take a little bit of bravery, and I think you're doing some good work with your YouTube channel on getting these messages out, so that's fantastic.
Thanks. Okay, so what is the next question? I don't have any more questions, but if there's anything you want to share in general about what you think of feminism, just like if you speak from the heart about feminism, what would you say?
Well, I would probably say that at the very, very core, it probably is well-meaning, but I do think that the very modern iterations of feminism, say like the third and the fourth wave specifically, have lost their way. And I think that they are, as you were saying, they're very set on degrading men. But I think another side of it is they're also very set on redefining what a woman even is. So now almost anyone can be a woman. Whether you were born a woman or not, you can now be a woman, you can take over women's sports and do this, that, and the other. So we're losing what our original God-given souls kind of are, because everything's lost, everything's conflated, nobody knows what's going on. I don't think feminists really know what's going on anymore either. But, they've got to have more and more problems to talk about, because if feminism was solved, if all these issues were over, they'd have no purpose in life. Mm-hmm. So I think what really needs to happen is that everybody sort of needs to calm down a little bit, and we all need to come back together and remember why we all used to love each other. Men used to love women, women used to love men. Plenty of us still do love each other, but there's, as you say, a very broken relationship. And the only way that broken relationship is going to go if we don't repair it is essentially the end of humanity. Because if nobody likes each other, we're not going to be having children and families. that's the end. There's no humans left.
Right.
So,
and I think this is generally the choice, of Western society, and that's a valid choice. I mean, if you, but at the same time, also you don't want to go out with hate. Even if you're gonna,
exactly.
Yeah, even if you're gonna go out, just go out with love.
That's right. Exactly.
But yeah, I agree. The birth rate and thing is also an issue. It's a choice. That's the best way I can put it. It is a choice that people are making, and I can't speak against that. If that's their choice, that's their choice.
Well, that's true. Being a parent's not for everyone, but I think at the end of the day, there will also always be people who do want to be
exactly.
parents. But it makes it so much harder with the broken relationships that we've
I agree. Got, there's diversity. So yes, there are some people who absolutely wouldn't want to have children, but there would always be some humans, men and women, who would actually like to have children, and it would enrich their lives, and it would be something good. And
absolutely,
yeah, and I think that it's important to keep both sides in mind, and to also create a society where that's possible, because if it becomes too toxic in a sense, then it's not possible, and that's sad for the people who would have enjoyed life in this way, because what else?
Yes.
So okay, so that's the end of the interview. Thanks a lot for interviewing with us. I will link your channel in the description for sure, and I hope everybody checks out your channel. And thanks for speaking out. It's so important.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and
thank you for having me.
Yeah.